Tapestry weaves together the threads of our struggles and doubts, curiosities, our faith, our joys and hopes to create meaningful conversations that matter. You know those late night conversations that go unexpectedly deep? That's what we want to capture with the Tapestry podcast. And we want everyone to jump in the conversation. Because when we are heard and valued, we can begin to believe we are loved. Welcome to the Tapestry podcast. All right, here we are, a new season of the Tapestry podcast, and we have a different format. Things are going to look a little bit different, sound a little bit different, because things are a little bit different. We're not in the same room as we used to be, and so yeah, guys, what are we doing? What's going on here?
Life,
digital podcasting.
Yeah, part of it is life, like. Being able to do things, with schedules, but also keeping it real, right? Being able to keep the conversation, and conversation can happen when we're together and when we're virtual like this too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Blessed by technology.
Yes.
Yeah. As much as, I'm sure we'll talk about this in this season, how technology can be a curse or a challenge or has its shadow sides and deep darknesses. Also, here we are. This is great. Mm-hmm. We can reach out across the expanse and talk to each other, and then talk to everybody who's listening as well and watching. The other cool new thing about this is it makes it easy to capture our what's happening in our faces and stuff. So we'll be able to have this on YouTube and maybe even other video streaming or hosting platforms. So yeah, here we are kicking off a new season of Tapestry podcast, and we're going to be talking about a bunch of different things that touch on our lives, what it means to live in our world today, and how that is impacted by and intersects with spirituality and faith. And today, our topic or our question is, what do I owe you? And the idea is basically coming from this idea of like a transaction. Like that question brings up this idea of, like, what do I owe you? Like, we went out to dinner together and you're going to Venmo me or whatever. What do I owe you? But this deeper question of what do we owe each other? What are our obligations to each other in a society? And eventually we'll get to how those obligations are affected by our faith and our spirituality. Another difference we plan to do with this season is to have shorter episodes. So we'll break this one question up into 3 different episodes, and we'll see exactly how long those end up being, but not as long as the ones in the past. So I guess we let's just kick it off. What does it mean to live in a society, and like what does that mean for our obligations?
You go first, Haleigh. You always have something good to say.
I was going to kick it off to you this time. But, I mean, I don't know. I think, man, that's such a big question. What does it mean to live in society? Mm-hmm. That's like, I don't know. That's almost like asking, I don't know. That's like finding meaning in something that's automatic.
Yeah.
'Cause like,
none of us have lived outside of society.
Right. I don't, yeah. Is that possible? I don't know if that's possible. Even if you're like off the grid, you're like, or even if you're not like contributing in your community or in society, like, I feel like you're still living in society. This feels like something that someone very educated could really talk about.
Yeah. Maybe we should have gotten somebody really educated.
Next time.
Next time. No. I don't know. I guess it just, for me, what it means to live in a society, well, I mean, like, to find meaning in society.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, in that what do I owe you, it's kind of, I feel like we all owe each other everything. Like I
Yeah.
feel like if we lift each other up, then we are lifting ourselves up, that kind of mentality. So, but actually applying that in our very transactional society is very difficult.
Yeah.
Where it is like, and I think especially like in my generation or younger, like on the internet especially, it's very much like, I don't owe anybody anything, like, and that type of mentality isolates us. And there's a lot of isolation in people my age and people younger than me. And so we're finding like dissonance of what society tells us, or like at least in American society, in our little bubble in Colorado, of the dissonance between what society tells us we should be, how we should be behaving with one another, versus what actually feels good and actually like prolongs, I don't know, happiness, fulfillment, those kinds of things.
Yeah, and I also, guys, I just realized that we didn't really introduce ourselves either.
Oopsies.
So why don't you go first, Haleigh?
I'm Haleigh. I'm 23, and that's me.
And go ahead, Mwangi.
I'm Mwangi, and I'm old enough.
And I'm Mike, and I'm about the same. Yeah. So we're all here. We're in Colorado, even though we're not in the same towns in Colorado in this moment. But we're all connected to each other through a faith community called Broomfield United Methodist Church. Though that's why we know each other, but it's not necessarily where we all work or worship or anything like that. But that's our background. So our background is followers of Jesus, Christians who grew up in, or at least now are part of a United Methodist tradition or a Wesleyan tradition. And so that's the angle we're coming from. But I think we're also we want to be very open to kind of lots of different kinds of spirituality and faith traditions as we talk about these big concepts like society. I guess, Mwangi, you got anything to say about the big question?
Yeah, it made me think. So when you mentioned, Haleigh, about sort of, it makes me think two paths. Legally, what do I owe you? And then the non sort of like I don't know you. So I work in environment, health, and safety. So the Occupational Safety and Health Administration tells you. So Haleigh's wearing Colorado Avalanche shirt. So let's say she owns that arena, and she hires me. Haleigh is obligated to furnish a workplace free of recognized hazards. That is, if she employs me, it's her job to make sure, to the best of her abilities, that she informs me of anything dangerous that would occur in my job. And if there is that thing, it's her obligation to find ways to mitigate that particular thing. So if I've never skated before and I'm going to fall because there's ice, she needs to give me pads or whatever else she feels would protect me. So there's this where there's a legal obligation where we have to, but then there's the other side. I think, Haleigh, you were kind of talking about is like, okay, what about that other side, right? What if I'm a fan at said stadium? What do I owe the person sitting next to me? Nothing, right? I paid my money. I should be able to scream as loud as I want, right? Potentially say whatever I want, right? So like those two spaces exist, and I think we all exist in those spaces. And sometimes I think we're asking ourselves that question is, when do I owe and who do I owe, right? It can depend on some of that, right?
Yeah. I mean, I guess if we're starting from like the very bottom or the biggest umbrella, like humans, we live together. We're not solitary creatures, and we never have been. There are other creatures on our planet that are pretty solitary, and that's just not us. And we must have found some advantage, some, I guess, benefit to living together. And we know that there are also some some downsides to living together, right? Like if you've ever had a bad roommate. But to me, there are lots of questions about why we've chosen to do this. And despite the overwhelming evidence that this is how we've lived for all of our recorded history for sure, and prehistory as far as we can tell, there are people who seem to think that we ought to be able to live and support ourselves on our own, which we'll talk about kind of in the second episode. But like what should we expect from living together in proximity with other people and with I guess not just a culture, but yeah, like society. Like what is it that's for? And I think some people would say, well, it's not for anything. We hardly owe each other anything. And really it's just like, don't hurt somebody else and hopefully they won't hurt you. But it seems to me like there is more. And one of those things is respect. And I mean that in a pretty like rudimentary way. And some people talk about, like, I don't know, what do you guys think? Does somebody have to earn your respect?
I don't think.
I think
Go ahead, Haleigh.
Sorry. Oh, I was going to say, I don't think my values would say no.
Mm-hmm.
In practice, that's much harder.
Yeah. Good.
Right? Like, I don't think people need to earn kindness. I think but that's not always easy. Yeah. But I do believe that people can lose that, not necessarily, I think kindness, I do like to use kindness in lieu of respect, simply because I think I can always I always attempt to, but I think I can always respect the humanity of a person.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that is always there, but I think you can lose that, not necessarily kindness, but that, I think I don't know how to articulate what I'm saying. Mwangi, you take it and I will
I
figure
think
it out.
for me where I'm at is I can respect, but I don't necessarily trust 100%.
That's
Okay,
good,
right?
yeah.
I can respect where you're at, but that doesn't mean I fully trust you to do X, Y, Z or whatever, right? I think
That part is earned.
That can be, and earned doesn't mean like it's at zero, right? I'm not a believer in like you start from zero. Maybe it's 50,
good.
you know, like
Yeah.
I work in many teams where
good.
it's like, oh, we gotta earn trust. Well, no, we're all hired together. Like there's some commonality here, so there should be some
A baseline somewhere.
of trust,
Right, yeah,
that we can get better from. But this idea of like sort of resetting to zero, especially people you know, like I don't quite get it. But for me, again, I'm not saying it's high trust, but there's something there that it's kind of okay. I trust something about you, or I can lend that, right? But that doesn't allow you. It doesn't give you a lot of room. Let's be honest. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But it's there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I guess for me, I'm kind of in a similar situation to you guys. My value, I like the way you put that, Haleigh. My value is that people don't need to earn my respect. I start with respect. I automatically give dignity to your humanity.
Dignity is a good word.
Yeah, right. I think, for me, that's important, right? And someone could lose it, but that doesn't mean that I wouldn't still treat them with dignity and honor, even if I don't have the same kind of respect for them or same trust. I think that's a good word too, trust. Trust is easy to break and hard to repair, right?
And I think something that's coming up right now is like when we talk about respect, usually it is kind of all or nothing. So like always resetting to zero, but I think we also, in that all or nothing, it's the whole entire person, not just like elements of them, right? So like I might not respect your opinion, like someone's opinion ever, but I can, again, find dignity, respect their humanity, still treat them with kindness and respect. But they might lose that value of their opinion. But I don't think I would ever lose someone's value as a human. But that does take work in the world we live in right now, where there are people who do not value me as a human.
Yes.
Right? So I do think we owe each other value as a person who exists on this planet with us. I think
like if we want to live in a society that works, that like functions well together, I think that's a baseline. When we start to lose that is when things start to break down. And I think there are ways or reasons that breaks down. So yeah. And I think part of that is when we talked about this a little bit in the last season, like who's part of society or who gets to be, I guess, the important ones in society, or we talked about it. We framed it as tribe in the last season, but I think it's still an important way to talk about it, or like who counts when we talk about who I have obligations to. Like, I think everyone would agree that you have some obligation to at least maybe one other person in your life. Is it two? Is it a dozen? Is it all of humanity, or somewhere in between?
I mean, that's complex, right? Part of human history, even today, we love to owe allegiance to people, which makes us feel like part of the tribe, right?
Yeah.
And whether sometimes that person owes allegiance back to us can be fuzzy, but a collective, I am part of this tribe, and we're owing allegiance to this figure, this dogma, whatever, helps build trust, if you will, or respect. And then counter will, if you don't align with that, right? If you, it's the opposite, then I don't have respect for you because you're not aligned with my thought methodology. Therefore, not only do I not owe you anything, you might owe me, right? Because you're reaping from, some construct that says you're reaping from me because you are different, right? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think we see that we're dancing around some things about our current political climate, right? When it comes to whether or not, say, a government owes its people anything in terms of healthcare or welfare or anything like that. And without trying to tackle those questions here in this moment, like there are some people who feel like there are, like, I don't know, leeches or sponges who are like taking.
Yeah,
and then there
where
are
an
others
existence is inherently
parasitic or something.
Parasitic or burdensome.
Burdensome's a good word.
Yeah.
But there are others who are maybe somehow like at a higher level, and we're the ones who are
more worthy.
Yeah. And I think that can be dangerous when it comes to society and how we think about our obligations to one another and maybe our duties or what we owe each other. Yeah.
No, I mean, you guys are spot on. And so whether it's today or, like I said, you look in history, that happens, right? If you're the conqueror of a war, whoever you conquer is in a lesser status. They know their place, you know your place, right? And then 100 years later, it flips. And, right? Yeah. So maybe fundamentally there's this, human need, right, to be important. So Martin Luther King has this sermon called The Drum Major Instinct, where this idea of I want to be first, right? But the question is at what, right? So there's a desire to be first and be recognized and have the most respect or have the most influence or be the most trustworthy. Like it's innate in us. We want it. We love it. Let's be honest. We love it. If you're held up and everybody's like, yeah, you're the man, right? You go, like whatever. But the question is on what? Like what did you do to get to the point where people are elevating you and, and so is it because you felt you felt from the beginning that you owed them something and you gave it to them and they rewarded you that? Were you the person who got up and said, wait a minute, no, sort of 1984 Orwellian, we're at war with Eurasia, right?
Yeah. I've always been at war with Eurasia.
Who the hell is Eurasia? Sorry. Right? And so is it that kind of thing? And so the O, I think I would love to ask leaders in prominent positions what they owe their constituents, right? So politicians, CEOs, what do you owe your people, right? As opposed to what do they owe you? Because many times the leaders are the ones setting the tone and telling their people what to do. I need this from you. I need this from you. I need you to do this. Less so upward feedback where they're taking sort of grassroots, input and then morphing themselves into that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they might talk that way. I heard from this person who has a bakery and they told me about how the flour prices have just been awful. Yes. But really what they're talking about is these macroeconomic forces and they just wanted to try to put a spin on it. I definitely want to, as we get into other parts of this conversation in coming episodes, I definitely want to talk more about that idea of what it is that has made us as individuals who we are. And so therefore, what we owe, like a person in power owes their power to something or to someone or to some group of people, but they may not see it that way immediately.
They might not credit it where it's due, but yeah, they got it somewhere.
Yeah. This is interesting. So we're talking about what do I owe you? We're talking about our obligations to each other. We've started here by talking about society in general, what that means and what place we have in it and how that might inform how we talk about this. In the second episode, which will come out right after this one, we'll talk about this idea of how we tend to resist feeling obligated to others, especially in individualistic societies like ours in the United States, in Western culture. This idea of lift yourself up by your bootstraps, or fill in whatever aphorism or old-timey saying works for you here, kind of that cowboy mentality. And we live here in the West too, where that's maybe even more kind of in the Mountain West with this rugged mountain man kind of people. And then in the episode of that'll wrap up this question, talking about spirituality and faith and where that intersects. So, really looking forward to continuing the conversation with you guys. Do you want to say any more kind of about this bigger umbrella about society?
I think we're probably dipping into the next episode. Maybe probably Haleigh, you can kick it off at the next one, but generationally. So Mike,
generationally?
Getting tied. At work, right? An older generation say, I owe my employer years, right?
Yeah.
Right? Versus
Not
Haleigh's
us.
friends might be like, no. Or,
If they don't give me what I need,
right? So even the
we're out.
Exactly. So the as well, I think it's also interesting from a work life balance, and definitely we could talk about that next episode. That thought put that thought in my mind too, because how do you see yourself and what is owed, what is loyalty? Because I think somebody mentioned loyalty, right? Part of that is when you say you're loyal to something, there's an owing of something, right? There's an exchange one way or another, right? And so I wonder how that translates to because we all got to make a dollar some way, shape, or form, right?
And who you owe, what you owe them, how big a group do you owe, I think is really interesting. And I think it seems to me that if the group gets too small, then society really starts to break down. And I think maybe we start to see some of the troubles we've actually got right now. Is it when your circle's too small, when that group of people that you have any obligation to is just your family, then that means
nobody else matters or nobody else counts.
Yeah, and that then you see some problems.
It's so interesting. Right now I'm rereading The Hunger Games for the first time since I literally read it for the first time when I was 10 years old, which is kind of crazy, but I'm rereading it for the first time since then. And obviously, like, very familiar with the Hunger Games story. I don't know how you can avoid it for that long.
Yeah. To do it on purpose, I guess. Yeah.
I know, for real. Me with Twilight, anyway. But there is this kind of level of, like, it's so applicable to right now. Just the dehumanization of others. So you have the people in the capital, and you have people in the districts, and obviously Katniss is from the poorest district, for sake of hyperbole in the literature. But there is this idea throughout, and even Katniss as a narrator is really, really interesting, which, contrast from the movies, because, movies you don't get internal dialogue. But in the book, Katniss is very guarded, and she has to be. And I think you kind of see that in the film, but there is this entire thing throughout, and her development is very much, what does she owe somebody else in the arena?
Yeah.
And we see that, right? In the beginning, she's very much like, I don't owe Peeta anything. He doesn't owe me anything because we're gonna have to kill each other. Like, it doesn't matter. But ultimately, as we all know, spoilers for a 10-year-old movie, 13-year-old movie, that they both live because they both decide. Right? Peeta is ready to let her live. He's willing to give his entire life for her in that space. But for Katniss to say, no, we both owe each other survival, when everybody else wants something else, that's just very, I don't know, I'm trying to, like, get to my point, but the point is that, like, we can be told, I guess back to what I was talking about earlier, that, like, society can tell us what is worth something. In this case, in the Hunger Games, their lives for the entertainment of other people. Yeah. And they say, no, we're going to add more value. Value for us. Value for the people that we care about. And in that, like you were saying, when the circle gets too small, Katniss only cares about her sister, genuinely. And so for Katniss to expand that circle, that's what kickstarts the rest of it. So for us to expand who we care about, it also allows us to care about more for ourselves too, because I love using literature. It applies so well. But Katniss adding value to someone else immediately added value to herself. Yeah. She cared about her survival later so that way Peeta wouldn't be alone. So that way Prim wouldn't be alone. So that way whoever else adds value to Katniss also, I don't know. I think when we add value to others, we add value to ourselves, which is a real world thing. My church, we're part of a program, I know we're watching time, Mike, that it's called Days for Girls, and we make cotton menstrual products that are reusable. I don't remember what country off the top of my head we send them to, but pretty much part of our messaging in that is that when these girls miss days of school when they have their period, and so getting them back in school with products gets them an education, and then with the one person in the household having an education then raises the economic level, all of those things, the education level of the whole household.
Yeah, it's huge.
So impacts on us also impact the people around us. And I think often we forget that in general, where it's, if some impacts me, it impacts people close to me, but we forget that when it's about strangers. Yeah. We say, that person, they can disappear, and, like, nothing happens to the people around them. That's not true. Yeah. It's just easy to remember when it doesn't affect us.
Yep. Yeah, you just don't see it. Yeah, that's that kind of, the Days for Girls can be revolutionary in the same kind of way that Katniss making that decision was sparked a revolution, essentially, right? Like it totally changed a whole society.
Right.
And I think that's the power that seeing an other as worthy or increasing your obligations, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Can actually be revolutionary. It can change everything.
Yeah.
That might be a good point to end this episode. Now
We
we're
did
talking,
that. Good time, guys.
and now we're gonna talk in the next episode about why we resist that so much, even though it could be so revolutionary. So,
Cool.
well done. Yeah. We'll see you guys in the next episode.
Cool. Bye-bye.
Bye. The Tapestry podcast is produced by Stephen Bailey. Original music was scored by Taylor Martin. Our hosts are Haleigh Bird, Mwangi Ndonga, and me, Mike Orr. Special thanks to Lauren Richmond Jr. and Resonate Media. You can learn more about Tapestry and join the conversation on our Discord channel at tapestrytalk.org. Thanks for joining us.